Good afternoon, brother Wagwan.
What's up? You saying you cool?
I'm good, my friend. Welcome to the Master in Manhood podcast. My name is André O Ferguson. I'm here with my brother Jermaine. Jermaine, welcome. Thank you for coming down, my brother. Good to see you, man. Good to see you. So today we're just gonna jump right into it, Jermaine. I want you to tell me what you think about fatherhood. I know you're a new father.
Yeah.
Your son is how old?
So Dry's two.
2 years old.
1 month.
Yeah, so not that long.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got 16, 13 and 6-year-old.
Okay,
so.
yeah, you're an OG in the
Yeah,
game,
I'm
man.
OG, bro.
I should be asking you.
No, the idea is that I learn from yourself.
Okay,
because
okay.
I admire how you are with your son. I've seen
Okay.
stuff, that you do online. Your Instagram page that is dedicated to just you and him, which I think is really cool. And I know you're doing some stuff on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
That you're promoting and you're trying to get out there. So I just wanted to know, how has fatherhood changed you as a man?
Yeah, it's I think it's given being a man a little bit more meaning.
Right.
And I think a part of that is having a son as well. Because I think in a weird, controversial way, I didn't necessarily my life ambition wasn't to become a father.
Right.
I always say to people in general, if I wasn't blessed with a child, then I don't know whether I would not that whether I would mind or not, but it wouldn't. I think I would be able to use my energy in different ways.
Anyway,
now becoming a father, it's almost like I can't imagine not being one. Do you know what I mean? So it's from that perspective, becoming a father is kind of almost, it's given life a lot more, it's added a lot more value to life, it's given it a lot more meaning, and in some ways, a lot of ways, it's given it a little bit more purpose as well.
Excellent.
So I think, it's definitely, when people say life-changing, that's probably one of the best ways to kind of really describe it in a word.
That's pretty deep, man. So you're saying, because obviously being a father now has shaped your view of how you move forward as a man.
Yeah.
Especially because you have a son.
Yeah.
So do you think that and I'll switch this question. So how you grew up with your dad, how has it shaped the way you are now raising your son?
Good question. And the interesting thing about the answer to that is that I don't know my dad, innit?
Right.
So never seen the guy before in my life. Don't know what he looks like, what he smells like, none of that at all. So growing up without a father, that in itself left me with a number of questions that will probably always be unanswered. And that's fine to a certain extent, because I personally think so. And this is the way to just kind of give you a bit more perspective to that as well, because I don't know, we're probably going to touch on it in other conversations, but in my personal view, having a father around that's a bad father will have more of a bad impact on you.
It's worse than
not having a father at all.
Yeah.
Although I didn't have a father around, I had an amazing mother.
Right.
I had amazing aunties, uncles, and a proper family unit. So what I lacked or missed in not having a father around, in a lot of ways, in some ways, the fantastic family that I have around me made up for it.
Compensated.
Whereas if I had a bad father around, then that probably would have had more damage. It's almost like, imagine being born without your left arm.
Right.
Never having a left arm before at all.
Yeah.
You would never know what that feels like. So you just learn to live with 2 legs and a right hand.
Yeah.
If all of a sudden that gets amputated, or that comes and then that goes, and then that comes and then that goes, that's going to be worse for you to deal with than not having an arm at all. So I think that in itself took me years to probably get to that place where I could kind of really define it in that kind of way. But I think having a great family around, it didn't leave me with that curiosity of, how come
you didn't have a sense of want. You didn't feel like you were missing anything.
No, and that's the thing, and that's mainly because I always knew that I was wanted by my family. Right. And that love, I suppose, that I received from my family was probably what didn't leave me wanting or necessarily being as curious as some other guys would. And every guy and every person who's probably been through it has got a different kind of perspective. But it kind of made me, there's a number of kind of reactions to it. But in general, I think not having a father around how it relates now to me being a father, it just makes me want to make sure that I'm around even as much as I possibly can be.
Yeah.
And I document certain things, and I can show my son everything he needs to know, so that when he becomes a man and when he becomes a father, he has something to go by.
Yeah.
And it will just make him being a father, he'll be as a result of my page and all of the things I write about and the experiences that I capture, the ambition really is for him to become a really effective father. And that's me trying to think about my grandchildren and the next generation.
That's you future-proofing your life.
Yeah, and that's kind of...
And his life.
Yeah, 100%. And that's kind of some of the reasons why the whole page has come about, and I suppose that even the effort and the energy that I put into being a father, that's kind of where a lot of the motivation's actually been. So that the absence of my father has kind of fueled me onto
presence within your son.
100%.
Yeah, and the different mediums in which you use to document that.
Yeah.
And to share that message with him, for him to come up and see, and with other fathers who need to see fatherhood in the way that you're kind of doing it. I mean, if I totally relate to what you're saying, but mine was exactly what you're saying. You didn't have, so you didn't have somebody dropping in and out. That's what I had, and I didn't have that support unit. You know that you had, so I was always lacking. In many ways, in many areas of my upbringing. So my dad was never around, but then, you know, at a certain age I would see him drop in. I was like, okay, that's my dad, and then I'm happy now. And then he's gone again. And then, you know, a couple more years pass and I don't see him again, and then, you know, he drops in again. And then, you know, I remember one time my dad visited, I was living at my grandmother's, and he visited and he just beat me to the inch of my life. And I was like, what's going on here? And
he was absent.
He was absent, you know, but I must have done something wrong. And he decided he was going to discipline me, you know, and my grandmother wasn't having it. But my grandmother was always kind of my safety net. You know, my grandmother was the only kind of, my grandmother taught me about love and parental love and all of them things. My mother didn't, you know, my dad was absent, you know, so I asked you the question because, you know, my upbringing was very much lacking in many ways. Emotionally, I didn't know how to deal with things, you know, so I grew up, you know, doing the player thing, watching my uncles do their thing and just running around, because I thought that was what was cool. You know, my uncles were superheroes to me because they had all these girls, and I thought, you know, that's awesome. So I grew up and I did exactly the same thing they did, made exactly the same mistakes they did, because that was my reference point. They were the people who, to me, manhood. That's how I defined manhood, by looking at my uncles, you know, and I got 7 of them, and not one of them was, you know, what you would call, you know, a proper reference point, you know, because I said it to you before. I mean, I've got 7 uncles, and they got an average of 3 or 4 kids with an average of 3 or 4 different women, you know, and that's an average.
We're talking average.
That's an average. You know what I mean? So, and I grew up doing the same thing because I thought, you know, that's what's correct. You know, so it's interesting to hear your viewpoint, because you know, sometimes we tend to forget, and we don't put enough emphasis on how much of an influence the images we see growing up have on the way we make decisions as men.
100%.
You know, and it's difficult being a man. It's hard work. You know, and we have a lot of responsibility.
Definitely.
And if we don't get the right training, then that responsibility kind of goes out the window, because you know, we're just kind of going off the back of what that guy said. And that guy might have said the wrong thing.
100%.
You know, so we need proper reference points, which is why you know, I like to hear what you have to say about that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think and I can fully relate to that lifestyle as well, because and that's the thing, even though I didn't have a father around, I had that stability from my family. There was still there's still a question mark in your mind of how you are, how you carry yourself, and how you operate as a young man. And without having a father around, you almost have your peers. Your peers are almost seen as not your father, but they're seen as a good reference point.
They're your elders, so you look up 100%. To them.
Yeah, so
it's like a little brother having a big brother.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got your peers, you've got all of the other guys that you see, you've got the rappers that you look up to when you're a young star, you've got the music that you're listening to, and all of that in a sense kind of helps you shape what manhood's all about, and you end up the image, like if you were to take all of the things you see, then you have a number of images. And I suppose when I was growing up, there was probably a number of images that I would have seen that I could have referred to. So I could have referred to the rappers,
right?
And I could have been, and that lifestyle in a lot of ways appealed to me, and probably was lived in some ways by myself, if I'm being honest. But then you, even as silly as it sounds and as trivial as it may sound, you've still got the reference to some of the stars you see in the film. So you've got Uncle Phil in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yes, sir.
You've got a man who's educated, who's got a number of children, but he's got a great job and he lives in a great house with a great family. You've got the Cosby Show, and you've got like Bill Cosby doing his thing, and it's
you
just
want
like,
to be careful how much you talk about
that's the thing. Yeah, it's unfortunate because until a few years ago,
Bill Cosby was my hero growing up. That's unfortunate.
Bill, man, Bill was great.
It was the man.
Now we can't even think. We can't even use great and Bill in the same sentence.
No.
Clinton or Cosby.
None of the Bills.
Literally, but
none of the Bills.
But that's the thing. When you grew up I still had some of those images, and as much as they were like fictional characters on American kind of TV shows, their lifestyle appealed to me as well. Absolutely. And I looked and I thought, you know what, that looks really good. Like the rapper's lifestyle looks really good too. But that lifestyle equally looked good. It's just like, but then but with that, sometimes that's the challenge. You don't have the father around, and you end up getting to a place where you need to kind of really define what that looks like.
Exactly.
And
the problem is, because as men, I don't know what it is, but men have an affinity to superheroes, right? So we sometimes create our own superheroes. You know, so ideally, as a little boy growing up, as a man, you want to be your son's superhero.
100%.
Right? So you want your son to look up to you, and that's his reference point. So you want to give him the clear guidance as how to deal with money, how to deal with life, how to deal with, you know, education, how to deal with careers, how to deal with women, how to do all of these things. You want your son to look to you. So you need to make sure that you're that individual that does these things correctly, so that your son has the right reference points
100%.
and has the right image of what manhood is. Because he's gonna go, my dad wouldn't have done that. And I'll reference one of the guy you know. So Hewitt and his son.
Okay.
Right? So last year it was when we were playing football, and Hewitt was on the pitch, and Dante was like, "That's my daddy. That's my." And Dante must have been at this time. He must have been 14. And I was looking at it like, wow, he was so in love with his dad. He was like, "That's my daddy," and he was doing rubbish on the pitch.
Well, that's the worst thing about it. But
he loved his dad like his dad.
That's his superhero.
His dad is his superhero, and I thought that was awesome. You know what I mean? And you can just see the kind of love both ways, and the kind of guidance. And he's just raising him like, no, Dante, you need to do this, and this. And that's close to home. You know what I mean?
That's the thing.
But, you know, for us who didn't have fathers, we have to look to American rap, or to Uncle Bill, or to Uncle Phil. You know what I mean? And those guys, you know, again, those are highlight reels. That's not real life.
Exactly.
You know, it's just images that's projected. My hero growing up was my grandfather.
Okay.
You know, so my grandfather, as much as I had terrible images of men growing up, you know, my dad, my uncles, you know, my peers, you know, all of these things, you know, just tough. My growing up was tough. You had to fight for putting your foot forward. You had to fight for that. You know what I mean? Sometimes when you had food in your plate, you had to fight to eat the chicken leg, because if you left it too long, somebody was going to take the chicken leg. So I literally had to fight for everything. But then I had image of my grandfather. And my grandfather was a quiet man.
Okay.
And my grandfather was, you know, big guy, 6 foot plus. You know, my grandfather would wake me up early in the morning from 6-7 years old, and we would go to the bush. You know, and he would say, come grandson. And this was before I had to go to school. So I had to go and bring all the goats and take them, tie them out. And then, and then I had to bring back the firewood so that grandma could cook breakfast, so that I could eat to go to school. You know, and then grandpa would do his farming. I would leave him there. He'd do his farming, you know, from 4 to sort of 6. And then he would come back, get ready, and go work on the bins. You know what I mean? All day, and come back. Bro, that man to me was, and grandpa would if you call my grandfather now, he's ironing his grandchildren or his great grandchildren's clothes. You know, grandpa's ironing. You know, and my grandmother had 8 kids when my grandfather met her.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, think about that. Yeah, I mean, would you marry a woman with 8 kids?
Probably not even one.
Probably not even one. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So to me, and he's so humble. You know, he'll never ask for anything. He'll never complains about anything. He just gets on with things, and he does his best all the time, and he takes care of every child as if they're his own. You know, he's got 1 child, my grandma. You know what I mean? Grandma's got 9 kids. Grandpa only has 1. And he married her with 8 kids. You know, and he never once, you never hear him once. I'm sure they have their little things in their bedroom, but you never hear that man. I've never heard that man argue, bro. You know, so to me, that's the perfect image of man. Because they've been together for what? Going on 60 years now. You know what I mean?
60 years.
Going on 60 years. I know. At their 50th anniversary, he said to me, grandson, it's 50 years, you know. And I said, yes, grandpa. He's like, I don't know, play a thing, you know, 50 years. And I was like, boy, I'm hoping I can get to 50 years old.
Literally.
Let alone
marriage, man.
Being married for 50 years. And
that's
you know,
amazing.
when he came to my wedding, he was very proud. He said, yeah, man, well done.
Amazing.
You know, because you know you're trying to do it the right way, and that was validation for me.
Of course.
He's my hero.
Because the person who you look up to, when they say well done to you, powerful.
Yeah, man.
Literally, man.
Yeah, because, you know, I invited my dad. My dad never showed up.
To your wedding?
Yeah, man, I invited my dad. You know,
he showed up to beat you, though.
He showed up to beat me. He regularly showed up to beat me. You know, I found him on Facebook after not, you know, for years, not hearing, knowing anything. And, you know, when I was about to get married, I said to my fiance, my wife now, I said, baby, you know, I really want my dad. I would like my dad to be at my wedding. Yeah. So I searched and I found him. And I messaged him, and, you know, without going into the conversation, because it was rubbish, you know, I said, you know, are you my dad? Because I wasn't sure.
Wow, okay.
Right? And he went into some other thing. Oh, didn't your mother tell you about your brother and your sister? And I was like, what? I've got brother and sister.
Wow.
You know, and he just started blaming my mom for everything and all sorts. And I was like, but, you know, I didn't call you for any of them things. I just literally wanted to invite you.
It must have just been a natural reaction would have been to defend himself.
Yeah, it's just guilt. It was just pure guilt. Yeah. You know, and I said, no, man, I don't want anything from you. I'm just inviting you to my wedding. And then he was like, oh, that's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And he still hasn't confirmed to me if he's my father yet. He still hasn't confirmed. And then I was like, okay, are you my dad then? And he's like, oh, you're just like your mom. You're so impatient.
Impatient? Whoa. I mean, it's been a few decades now.
It's been a while, though. It's been a while, brother. It's been a while.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, that's how that conversation ended. I messaged him a few times after that. He just kind of said hi, and that was it. You know, so he just didn't want it. He wasn't interested, and he didn't show up, and that was cool. But after that, you know, obviously I found out I had a brother and a sister. Okay. My sister's, you know, 41, not much older than me and my brother. And so I literally met my brother and sister. I met my sister. I still haven't met my brother. Wow. Met my sister at my wedding last year, December. You know.
Boy, that's mad.
Crazy. So that's why I wanted to touch on today, you know, fatherhood and the importance of it, because, you know, even with my dad's situation, he was kind of putting, you know, the blame on my mother. It was my mother's responsibility to tell me that I had brothers and sisters, but they weren't my mother's children. You know, but, you know, obviously they both need to be blamed, because, to tell you worse than that, I grew up in the same community with my brothers and sisters. With my brother and sister. Me and my sister was in the same school at one point.
Yeah, same here. Same here with some of my siblings as well.
Very same school.
Same primary school.
I used to go out with some of my sister's friends. I could have gone out with my sister. I would have not known, bro.
That's the danger.
That's crazy. Think about it.
That's scary.
That's scary. And I didn't even say it to my sister, but she said it to me. She said, bro, me and you could have gone out. I wouldn't have known. Yeah. And I was like, man, look at that. My sister's just 3 years older than me. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's vital as men, I think, and, you know, we don't have enough time today to go deeper, as deep as we need to go. So I'm gonna have to invite you back, and we're gonna have to go deeper into, you know, the effects, you know, of fatherhood or the lack of fatherhood, the effects of guidance or the lack of guidance for our young men, because, you know, the whole point of this channel is so that we can address the issues facing men, because it's affecting our society. You know, the young men are obviously lacking guidance. And no child is born bad. So I just wanted you to kind of touch on that. What do you think, the causes are and the solutions? Because the idea is that we provide solutions on practical solutions. So I said to a man one time, some guy came up to me and he said he was hungry, and he said, "Oh, you need to pray." And I was like, okay. Maybe a piece of bread, and then say pray. So for you, what do you think some of the practical solutions are in terms of fatherhood? Even if, because we know how society is now, there's a lot of broken homes, and some fathers feel, they can't properly parent their child because, issues within that relationship. So as a man, I know your situation is different, but what would be some of the practical advice that you would offer?
It's a good question. I think everyone who is a father has to kind of really, it's almost like the starting point for you is to kind of really understand what that actually really means. And I think that's the problem. The problem is that we don't know what fatherhood actually means.
Which is why I'm saying we're going to need 2-3 more programs. But anyway,
that's the thing. Because that's the thing. Because if we're saying, if I say to you, you know what, like if you say to me, for example, Jay, you need to lose weight.
Right.
You need to have yourself a really balanced diet. And you keep saying that to me.
Right.
And then what I do is I go to McDonald's and I buy a McDonald's chicken sandwich meal with a chicken sandwich burger and a salad
on the side,
And I think, if I have that every day, then this is balancing it out. And that's all I eat all the time. There won't be much of a difference in the way I look or me having a balanced diet. But in my mind, that's what balanced diet means. And everyone's got their own opinion or definition of fatherhood. But then what we need to do is actually collaboratively define what fatherhood actually is. Once that's understood, once we understand what fatherhood is and what fatherhood isn't, then it makes it easier. Once everyone's on the same page and has the same understanding, then it makes it easier. And that's the challenge in itself, because a lot of us as fathers, there's a number of factors that contribute to that. So me and you, we're both of Caribbean descent, for example, but you may see your child doing something and I may see my child doing something, and we could paint a scenario, and how you would react in that, it will be very different to how I would react in that. And sometimes we look at that and think, well, that means that we're different as fathers. We'll do things differently, but then if I choose to discipline my child one way, you choose to discipline your child the other way, those differences mean something. But what's more important is, the common thing really is to make sure that we always show our child love. And so if that's, even though we do different things around it, as long as we get back to that place where the child can feel loved from whatever we show them as a father, then that's the kind of common way that we can kind of really show father. And again, I'm trying to summarize it and paraphrase it, and it's a deeper kind of conversation to have. But
you just have to do your best with the time you have.
Yeah, that's it. Literally. So I think in my perspective, it comes back down to us kind of really trying to define what fatherhood means. And what fatherhood, there's two things: what fatherhood is and what fatherhood isn't. And what the isn't is just as important as it is. And we have to kind of really see the differences between the two. And it's small things like quality time and making sure that's defined as well.
I think that's key. Because even you touched on discipline. If you just discipline your child, if you're just in the house to discipline your child, like my father, but that's a lot of Caribbean homes. You know what I mean? So mom will do all the loving, and if you do, I'm gonna tell your dad, right? So
now you're the bad guy.
So you're genuinely, and even with my girls, I had to tell their mom, like, you can't do that, because I don't just discipline them.
I can't just be coming,
So my 16-year-old would say to me, Dad, sometimes it sounds as though you just discipline. And I go, what do you think then? And she goes, but you don't just discipline, Dad. You play, you hug, you run around, you do foolishness. Because I mess about. I just mess about.
You become a child when you're with them.
I'm just a big child. And they'll just jump on me, and I'm like, man, I can't carry you no more. They'll jump in my arms. And my 13-year-old is massive, bro. So, You're 100% right. We need to identify and clearly define our roles, as the role of fatherhood, and what it is and what it isn't, and make sure that, you know, we address that. I think spending time with your children so that they understand, you know, that you love them, 100%. And that is central in everything you do. You know, it's like my girls, one of my daughters, my 13-year-old, she wanted to go to a concert, but then she's got SATs coming up. Okay. And I'm like, okay, so what's the deal then? And she goes, oh, I want to, because mom's going to chaperone me, Dad, so it's fine. I said, I'm not so sure about that, but okay, let's discuss it. So she started telling me what she was going to do. So I said, all right, this is what you need to do. So I need an hour and a half to 2 hours study every day, Monday to Friday. It's nearly summer now, so sun sets quite late. So from 5 to 7:30, you should be studying. I need my book reports at the end of every week of every subject that you've studied, and I need you to be able to give me clear answers to what you've studied, so that I know that you know it, as opposed to, you know, you calling me and say, oh, I'm studying, and no, I need to see, you know, factual evidence, right? So if you evidence that to me up until the point where you're going to this concert, and I'm happy with that, then you're allowed to go. She goes, oh, but Dad, that's a lot of work. That's blackmail. I said, well, this is life. There's nothing easy in life, you know. But it's clear in our head, you know. And I talk to them. I said, no matter what I do with you, no matter what might seem tough, you know, this is your life. You know, I'm just kind of guiding you to a point. There's going to be a point as well where you're going to take less advice from me. But you see, for right now, everything I tell you, well, for the rest of your life, really, everything I tell you is about how much I love you. And if I say you have to do this, it's because it's going to benefit you in the long run. My 16-year-old's doing her GCSEs, and she called me up and she said, Dad, you know, all that hard studying, these exams are easy. I said, there you go. That's the thing. I said, you didn't want to study though. You didn't want to study. You were crying and you were saying, oh, yeah, you're so mean, and you know, but now look at you. And she was crying. She was like, oh, Dad, thank you so much. I said, there you go. We're here because I would have done exams, my daughter. You know what I mean? I would have gone through many exams. So I know what it is. And you know, a lot of exam is the nerves, it's the fear of doing the actual exam. You know it, but because you're so scared, you clam up and your brain goes blank. But if you constantly just pay into it every day, you're doing something, then it's just a test. You know, it's not even.
It's just to verify your knowledge.
It's just to verify your knowledge, and you know it. You know it. So when you walk in, you're confident. You're easy. You know,
that's what needs to be built up. But that's the thing. That kind of approach and those types of lessons and things are things that we need, I suppose we need to be told more of, and we need to be showing more of and doing more with our children.
100%.
And that's the kind of quality time that I'm kind of really thinking about, because the education thing can go two ways. You could have said, as long as you're studying and you do this, then that's fine. And your child could easily just be like, oh, well, let me show Dad this, and that'll be enough for him. But at the same time, there's a difference between that and the investment and the extra levels that you go to get the results is what needs to be taught for your child. I went to the park with my son, with Jariah, and this guy brought his 2 children to the park. And for the whole time, he brought the children to the park. He just sat on the bench on his phone. Beefing with his baby mums.
I've seen it.
On his phone. Beefing with baby mums. And I just thought to myself,
smoking a cigarette.
Yeah, and then they're saying to him, like, Daddy, push me on the swing. Now, if there's one time you need a parent, one job you've got to do,
you got to push them on the swing. Push them on the swing. Yes, sir. I was pushing my wife on the swing yesterday.
I don't know about that. I mean, she should be able to push it herself. But hey, that's the thing. It's just like, so you can be, so sometimes he may define quality time with his children and take him to the park. But what are you doing when you're there?
What do you do in the park?
And it's little things like that I think we just need to kind of get more clearer of as fathers. And I don't want to act like, you know, I'm the perfect dad or anything of the sort, because I'm still learning every day. And it's one of those things, I think, as a parent, I probably learn for the rest of my life. But I think there's a number of like small principles and bigger principles that we need to adopt.
Yeah, and I think that's a good note to end on, my brother, because, you know, if we just recognize and focus on the quality time and learning how to spend that quality time, because like you said, and I say it with the whole master in manhood thing, there's no master in manhood. It's not something that you can actually, you know, you get to that point, you get a certificate of mastered manhood. It doesn't exist. You know, it's a constant everyday process of learning, because you have to always be open to learning new things. And by being open and ready and willing to learn new things, that's the only way we get to the point where we're, you know, wise enough to realize that we don't know everything, and we're never going to know everything. Your children are always going to teach you stuff. You know, and it's important that we're okay and humble enough to learn from our children.
That's where it starts.
You see what I'm saying? So with that, respect and manners. Thank you for coming down,
brother. Thank you very much for having me, man.
Again, you are watching Master in Manhood. Don't forget to like, subscribe to this channel, and we'll see you next time.
Peace. Thanks a lot for that, bro. I just figured I could hear something.
I heard it, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna end now.
That was longer than I thought. I thought it was only 10 minutes in.
You see how quick 30 minutes goes, bro.
Yeah, literally. That's why you were like.